boom, 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 boom. We've got to understand that plyometrics are gonna play a massive role in leading to that huge vertical jump. These are the top 5 exercises that you can get more fit and help you jump higher. I don't want to see athletes here, if they're doing this, just sort of plop down. That's where we see that they need a little bit more stiffness in their joints. So the first 2 exercises that we're gonna utilize are gonna be pretty simple, almost like warm-up style plyometric movement. The first thing is gonna be utilizing our power elastic here. So you get power elastic at garagestrength.com. You can click on that link down below. But what I like to do with these bands, okay, I wanna get it lengthening here in my hamstring, okay, come through and try to hold in that hip lock position and do that again, okay? So I wanna go something where I'm like 4, 5 each leg. Try and really focus on pulling from that hamstring all the way upright, staying upright then at the top. That's gonna help open up the hammies, open up that posterior chain, the lower back, and it's gonna help us when we have the start getting into acceleration, and then from the acceleration, that transition phase into the top end speed. So that's one of the big things that we've got to touch on, is that if we look at speed, we're looking at specifically from the track, the start, acceleration, the drive phase, transition, and then the top end speed, okay, top maximal mechanics. So all these movements have to play into one of those phases. And this is gonna help us just to loosen up and feel a little bit better. So I like to do single leg good morning into a hip lock. Now, I'll take that and I'll pair this with a movement that I'm not that good at, okay? So this is gonna be side skips, really trying to wake up your hips. And what I see with this movement is that if you get a lot of football players that come in, okay, they tend to shuffle their knees. They don't really drive their knees when they're up at higher speeds. So this is a movement that's gonna help open up our hips to help get a little bit more hip flexion when we're trying to drive a little bit quicker. So just go easy here. Don't judge me too much. Boom, 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 okay? Now my right side's terrible. Boom, 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 boom. You can actually see when I came back through, hopefully you can see when I came back through, a little too much flexion in my knee on my right leg. I'm sure it was not the best for either leg, but what I do then is, as a coach, I want to look at my athletes and say, okay, when he's going from his right side, he's not extending that knee as well as he can. His hips aren't as mobile. His hamstrings might be a little bit tight, or she, whoever it is that we're working with. So we can utilize these 2 movements, okay, to lengthen the hamstrings, to wake up the hips. That's gonna help with the rest of this plyometric workout, and that's gonna increase our overall speed. Okay, so the next pairing, right? We started off with the band of good mornings with the power elastics. Click on the link down below, pick them up. And we also did those side hurdles, okay? The side skipping hurdles. Now, I'm pretty loose, pretty warmed up. My next step is I wanna do a seated tuck jump. And what I like to do is use 2 different boxes, okay? So I'm a little bit higher here, and this is where we wanna focus on our start. So if we are testing in the 40, if we're testing in a 60, if we're running the 60 meters or we're running the 100, this is gonna help with our start position, okay? So hopefully my mic doesn't fall off of my hip here, but I wanna sit here and I'm gonna get a slight rock, and I wanna think about pulling from my full foot and from my hamstrings and extending my hips. So it might be here, okay? 1, 2. And now what I wanna do is I wanna come down the lower box. This is where we're gonna be a little bit weaker. So we're going here. This is where we're gonna see our athletes, if we're dealing with football players or wrestlers or field hockey players, they're gonna be a little bit stiffer in their hips. Their lower back might be mobile, but their hips might be a little stiff, and this is where they're gonna see them being a little bit weaker. So we'll go here. Okay, so remember, seated to a tuck jump, it's gonna help with our start. Now, I'm gonna rest about 30 to 60 seconds, and I'm gonna do single leg stair jumps. Where does that come into play? Single leg stair jumps is one of the best unilateral movements that you can utilize to increase your acceleration, to increase your drive phase, okay? Because of the angle that your knee is forced to be in when you're coming up the steps. And you have to really project yourself. You're gonna notice with me, just like in those hurdles, okay? My right leg is gonna be a little bit weaker than my left. That's the benefit of unilateral stuff, especially when we're talking about stair jumps, and we're gonna demonstrate it shortly, is that you can really see who favors what side, and then you can utilize that to improve their strength on that specific side, and to train it first if we're doing specific plyometric work from that unilateral aspect. So I'm gonna get into this right here. Single leg, I'm gonna do my bad leg first. And you can even try and get in tune with the sound, okay? It's not just how it looks, it's the sound. If you hear boom, boom, obviously they're gonna be a little bit heavier on their feet. If you get a little quicker reaction, right, then you can see, okay, they're a little bit better on that side. So here, oh, that was every 2 on my right. The other thing is you can notice I have a little forward lean. That's paramount. That's a characteristic of the drive phase, of that acceleration. So that's where it's going to transfer really well. Here, now I'm going to go with my left. Now, I was a little heavier on my left. That was my first set. So as I wake up, my left's going to be a little bit lighter, and I did that with 3 steps. My right leg is just a little bit dead. If you have somebody that jumps off of 1 foot, like I tend to, well then you're gonna be able to see, all right, we gotta make their right side a little bit stronger so that their gait is a little bit more effective when they're sprinting. Okay, so the next 2 plyometric movements are gonna be focusing on the drive phase, on the acceleration, and on transition work, okay? Russian lunges, this is a movement that a lot of athletes can do that aren't even just sprinters, okay? Or that you're not even training just for that 40, you're training for anything. The Russian lunge is where I wanna hold this almost at a 90 and I'm here, boom, boom, boom. And we wanna pause, get some good feeling, and stay deep and mobile and quick in that transition with our legs. Okay, so you can do 4 to 5 on each leg, rest about 60 seconds. I love doing those Russian lunges for the rapid change of direction, the rapid movement of your knees. Now, the next movement, this is gonna be really focusing on transition work into that top end speed. We call these champion strides, okay? So champion strides, and this is something that I've used a decent amount with my throwers, especially Sam Mattis, who just got 8th at the Olympics. This is a movement that if we can be explosive off of 2 legs and explosive off of 1, now we're gonna have a little bit better carryover directly into whatever sport that we're playing. But this is difficult, it's challenging, and I might suck at it, okay? So what we wanna do is we're gonna go double leg, single leg, double leg, single leg, and it's gonna be from a bound. Okay, so we're here. Boom. Okay, so it's hard, it's a little bit more coordination, and I sort of favored on that first double leg bound, I did my right leg first, okay? That's my weak leg, just like when we did the stair jumps. So now you're gonna see I'm gonna do it second, and the hard part becomes that's where I'm gonna have more speed, I'm gonna have more energy, so it's gonna be, I have to really, really focus on what I wanna do. And I'm a little bit tight in my hips, I'm 37, I'm getting old, right? We've gotta challenge our athletes to really attack this and make sure when we're doing the bounds, the single leg bounds especially, that our knees are driving, we're holding good posture, we're not rocking all over the place, we've got that good dynamic trunk control that we've improved from all the other videos that we've shared. So this is gonna be my weak side. Remember, it's gonna be a double leg, a single leg, a double leg, a single leg. So bear with me on my weak side. Oh, not terrible, but the whole big focus here, use the Russian lunges, take about 30 to 60 seconds, go into the champion strides, and that's gonna help improve your transition, getting into that top end mechanics. Okay, so the last pairing here, this is the last group of movements, and I really, really, really like using both of these. What I'm gonna show here is an isometric muscular action in a split position with your heel elevated. So think about drive phase and a little bit through transition into that top end speed. Now the reason why here, this is just gonna help strengthen here, and I wanna hold this position pretty upright, okay? And I wanna hold this for about 20 seconds. So the whole goal is to be stable in through my ankle, in through my knee, and in through my hip while my posture is upright. I tend to come forward hard because I want everything to transfer to my hamstrings. Okay, so I wanna hold this position, and I'm gonna switch, okay? I wanna hold here, hold this position, and this is a really good exercise just for athletes in general, especially if we can think about football players, soccer players. We're always in acceleration, we're always driving, right? We always need to drive, so you're gonna be planting on the front part of your foot for most of your sprint mechanics. So I'm gonna do that for 20 seconds each leg. The next movement, I want to focus on a little bit more of a flat foot grounding. Not entirely flat, but I want it to mimic more of our maximal mechanics. So we want to have that ground reaction force to be very, very high. So we want our posture to be upright and grounding a little bit flatter. Now, I am not a sprinter that's world class. I'm not the fastest person on the planet as far as this is concerned. So this drill might not look the best for me, but what we want to focus on is a little bit of that midfoot grounding. Posture stays upright. You're going to see me lean a little bit. You don't want to do that. We want to drive that knee. So we'll go here. Oh, okay. And what I'll do is I'll get a little bit of a walk back, and we can utilize the sound. We can utilize the distance that we see our athletes doing to analyze, all right, where are they a little bit weak? You can even start to see how they ground their foot. You know, I tend to walk with my toes out, right? So I'm gonna ground that way a little bit. But on my right side, I might do it a little too much, or I might start to rotate a little more. And that's where we can really hone in on a little bit of mobility issues that our athletes might have. And that's gonna help us improve their mechanics, which then is also gonna help them get faster. So we can utilize plyometric movements, not just because of the strength and the rigidness that we're gonna gain, which is gonna lead to greater speed, that tendon stiffness, but we can also look at how they're grounding and take those cues that the body is providing to enhance their overall training. So I'm gonna go my right leg here. And you can start to see, for me, I felt like I'm starting to like jump over to the side. So utilize all these movements. Make sure you get that good warm up in. Use the power elastic band, help with that good morning into the hip lock. Do the drills, the hip drills, so you can learn how to drive those knees a little bit better. And then try to use every single exercise here. You can do this once a week, this whole workout once a week. Utilize these movements to increase specific parts of your speed, okay? Remember, we got the start, drive phase, transition, maximal mechanic. Now I'm standing here holding a cone and I'm about to demonstrate something to you, but what we want to do here is think about someone like Werner Gunther. Dude was an absolute monster. He would do one movement very, very consistently, and that first exercise was the movement that he would do. He would do double leg bounds or a broad jump, okay? So he would get set here, and he would just hit that nice broad jump. When I've been at the Olympics, and I've seen athletes warming up, oftentimes they might just be warming up here, just to get their nervous system rolling, doing that broad jump. You could do this movement using our 5S protocol, where you go here, slow, you know, here, stop, here, a little faster, and then obviously we can get into some more sport specific movements. One thing that you can do in training is we could do like 5 sets of 1 jump or 5 sets of 2 jumps, and we can make 2 jumps something like this. I've got my cone here. This is my first jump. We got a 10 here, boom, and I hit that. I'm gonna put this down right where my foot is. Second thing I'm gonna do is second jump. I gotta try and beat that. Here. Oh, I think I beat it a little bit. We wanna think about our counter movement. So this is where, as a coach, as an athlete, we can start to break down our technique. What's our counter movement depth? Is it short and sweet? Is it a little long? How low are we getting? The next thing, what's our arm swing look like? Are we here and we're swinging like this? If we're a beginner and we've never been taught, we don't have that intuitive nature to do a jump or to do an arm swing, then we have to be aware of what that should look like. Finally, we're gonna look at our chest. Are we trying to project out? And then that chest degree is usually gonna have a massive impact on our shin angle. So when we're trying to teach someone how to do a broad jump that's just 1 rep, we've gotta think through counter movement, arm swing, chest, how we project out. And then finally, which I did not mention, what are we doing in the air? If we look at the best vertical jumpers, if they're on a jump mat, they jump and then they swing back through. It's the same thing on a broad. We don't want to just jump and stay here. We can swing a little bit and then come back through. We can keep our arms out if we're going super, super deep and we're able to land forward. I think some athletes do feel a little bit more comfortable with the arm swing back through and then on the grounding. So it'd be here. Okay, so sort of like swing back through. I think I just beat that cone. So I'd swing back through, and then it could even look like this, where I'll try and keep it out, but it's gonna feel uncomfortable for me, so I'll try not to be too awkward. Here, that's really weird. So those are 2 options, but the big things come back to, with the broad jump, what's the counter movement, okay? What's the arm swing here? How deep are we going there? And try to stay a little bit shorter with that counter movement. What's our chest projection? How are we landing? And then finally, I'm gonna throw one thing in here. So we've got those 2 cones set up. And let's say Now we're taking the broad jump and we're gonna say, all right, let's do 2 repetitively. And this is probably the best way to determine your counter movement, is that we can get set and see where we land on that second one. And if you reflect back to where I talked about using this as like an easy warm up, where I'm going like this, you can see that counter movement got established just by a nice, easy position. Now what we can do, and this is where we're gonna see the arm swing come into play and being athletic. A lot of beginners will jump and then they're really slow and delayed on that recoil with their upper body. What I wanna do in the air, if we go back to when I taught you how to land the first time with that swinging through and then land, that's gonna help you for this movement right here, where you can do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 broad jumps in a row. That's the visual I have right now is Werner Gunther on the beach. He's got all these women around him and he's doing like 10 broad jumps down the beach. And that's what we can do here, minus the beach, minus the women. So that first big exercise is a broad jump. It's versatile, it's incredible. And it's gonna take us into the next exercise, the second exercise, which is gonna be a unilateral movement. Okay, so I've been thinking about all the programs that I've built recently and laying out what that looks like for each athlete that trains with me here in the trenches here at Garage Strength. And one of the big things that we always use is this single leg pogo hop, okay? And so what we're gonna do here is start basic. Okay, so start like we're dealing with something simple. We're gonna have a beginner athlete, let's say they're in 6th grade, 7th grade, or somebody who's 25 and they just wanna get in shape and they wanna train like an athlete. What they're gonna do is we'll go into our athlete day. We're gonna have a day that we lift weights, we're gonna have a day that we do upper body, we're gonna have a day that we do athlete-based work, okay? And we'll do a pogo hop. And it's just gonna look like this, right? Nice and easy, and we wanna do both sides, okay? So this would be that first sort of repetitive work that we're doing. For somebody who's starting off and they want to get rolling in training, they want to get twitchier, they want to have more fast twitch muscle, they want to recruit faster, okay, they want to get more coordinated. We might just start here, up, land, up, land, up, land, and then we do that here, up, land, up, land, up, land. And you can see on the counter movement there where the body shifts the load to try and compensate. And then you see that shift and then you can use that in your strength program. So oftentimes what a lot of you guys miss is that lifting will help you become faster. It will help you become more explosive. Okay, and in this case now, I just showed you what I'm doing with the single leg pogo here, boom. Now I wanna try and think about reacting quickly. And if you noticed, I started to bring my knee up. Okay, so this is another unique factor, is that when we start to do simple movements, just remember the whole point of this is the 3 best plyometrics, the only 3 you will ever need. I'm not saying that you should never do anything else, but if you sat down and said, I'm just doing 3 plyos the rest of my life, these are the only 3, and these are the variations that you would build off of that. Now here, I'm going boom, 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 boom. And if you notice there, the arm cycling. When you have a more inexperienced athlete or an athlete that's not as explosive, they really struggle with cycling their arms. Well, that's where stair jumps can come into play. You can see it on a depth drop, you can see it on the broad jump as I demonstrated earlier. So when we're trying to teach this technique, I like to teach it as though it's a spring or a shock that's getting absorbed here and then unloading. Absorbed, unloading. And what that's gonna look like is the knee will travel forward, the hip will typically go backwards. So we're in this sort of like hip flexion position with the knee flexion, and our chest will come forward along with that just a little bit to create that hip flexion here. And then what happens is now hands up, hands up, hands up. Look at my right leg, boom, boom, boom. And this is where movements like our RDL to a hip lock, those movements that we use, that helps us with a pogo hop. Okay, so now you can see I just did that on a line. You could have somebody do this, boom, a little quicker, here, boom, boom, okay? And we wanna teach, foot pressure should stay from like here forward. Try to avoid the heel really getting flat. It will happen, especially if we start training like a triple jumper, they will land flat-footed, that's part of the game. And even if we're going to jump in like basketball, that penultimate step will be flat. But in movements like this, I think it's a little bit more beneficial to cue staying a little bit more mid to forefoot. Now, I'm gonna show you some creative things that you can do. And this is where when we're doing exercises, I think it's key. as a strength coach to have benchmarks. So we create a benchmark for specific lifts and specific jumps and specific speed movements and endurance exercises. And that's how we create our entire system, right? Like, it's all based off of our workouts that we've done in the past. We compile the data, and that's how we build these athletes. So then a new athlete that comes in, we can say, hey, this is where we've got to work towards. And where I'm going with this is that if we use something like mini hurdles, this becomes our measurement. So we can measure distance, okay, about 2.5 to 3 feet apart. We can measure height if we really want to get into it. And then we can see ground contact time with the athlete. And then that's going to help us know that the work that we've done over the last 4 to 8 weeks is paying off or it's not paying off. And then that's going to help us improve the system. Okay, so in this case, we have these pogo hops set up. I'm doing a single leg pogo hop. And I did want to just go off even a little more here is if you notice when I was talking about my right knee coming through on the left-legged jump, is that my right will come through. And if you watched our Michael Drock video where he talked about whipping from the hip, it's really setting that up. This is a plyo that will make you freaking fast. One, through acceleration, but also through when we're at top speed. So we're here, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we can go through that. You can use this movement as a teaching tool for your programming. You use it as a way to learn how the athlete reacts, but then at the same time, you're using it to jump higher, to run faster, to accelerate quicker, and to just be stronger and more stable as an athlete. So use these single leg pogo hops. You could use these 2 days a week. You could just also use this as a warm up. You can even do it laterally, but make sure that you have some guide for, is it the hurdle, height, or hurdle distance as well. So this next movement we're gonna go into is gonna be upper body based. And I would even argue that doing a rope climb could be a plyometric for the upper body if you're not using your feet, because you're just accelerating the whole way through. And I think just thinking through plyometrics in the lens of like rapid reaction, rapid acceleration, and even to the point where lifting heavy, you're more in the moment. You're more conscious of the barbell on your back. You got to go through the eccentric. You can really think through the concentric movement. It's a little bit slower, so you have to be a little bit more present. When we're thinking about the upper body, one thing that I've seen with a lot of our beginners is that they struggle with stability. We're gonna do a clap push-up, and I'm gonna show you like 5 variations of this that you guys can use to develop a little bit more power output from your upper body with yourself and with your athletes. So even if you're a coach, you should be practicing this. So if I'm getting into position here, right, I'm gonna go here, and I wanna just explode up, okay? Here, up, like this, up. And some kids can't even do that in the beginning, which is perfectly normal. Like, this is very normal. It took me a while to just get decent at push-ups. So some kids we can actually do almost like a little modified, like this, okay? So they're here, and they just get like a little double bounce or a little hop. So that's like 2 easy movements. Now, where I was going with this is that a lot of younger athletes, once they start to learn how to accelerate, and then when they catch in that position, their shoulder joint has a better co-contraction, okay? And they can catch and drive. And what ends up happening is we'll see their incline bench or their flat bench go up like 50, 60, 70 pounds. Actually, we have a kid, RJ Cruz, right now, who's in 8th grade, hurt his hamstring out on the football field. And I said, look, 50 clap push-ups every single night. All of a sudden, his 5 rep max went from 205 to 255. Kid's in 8th grade. Just from doing those clap push-ups, and that was over about 6 weeks. The next thing, we showed you that little hop. We showed you a little drive for extension. The next thing is gonna be a little bit more challenging. This is very, very hard, and what you can do here is almost just start here, okay? And you see that little shake, right? So you can do like a simple push-up on the PVC to really wake up the nervous system. Then the next thing you can do is go into that explosive position. When I have this, I like to use this PVC on one arm if I have somebody who's like a wrestler or a football player or a field hockey player here. They can get in set, come up, boom, boom, boom. So now they're getting a little more explosive push, but it does have some plyo qualities that then set you up for this last thing here. I've demonstrated this in past videos where kids just sort of go like this. They do like the penguin clap. They don't really drive, okay? And I think that that's one thing we have to bring up, and that's why I love this specific plyometric exercise. When we do push-ups to boxes, the intent is absurdly high compared to clap push-ups. I'm gonna get into this position here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so let's do like sets of 3 to 5 reps. We do this 5 to 6 sets, 3 to 5 reps. Tamon Johnson just benched 500 pounds 20 minutes after he did push-ups and boxes, because we only did them for about doubles to triples to really wake up his nervous system, and that led to that great output from his upper body. So this movement here is the best plyometric for upper body. Now, I have one more exercise. So I said 3 in the beginning. I've got one more that we're gonna use, and you guys can go try this today out of the field to become more explosive. Okay, so this last series, and I know in the beginning I said the only 3 that you'll ever need. This is where I wanted to just get creative for you and demonstrate how we work through different problems or different areas that athletes have and how we troubleshoot and how we figure it out and then how we write that into our program. And that's something I wanted to share with you guys too, is that we put together our Peak Strength app. One of the big things that we've done is we take these benchmarks, we take these tests, and we write that into now our software in Peak Strength. And that's what we're doing here at the gym. When we've developed the Olympians, when we've developed these elite level football players or whoever it is, we're thinking through those specific benchmarks that I had laid out, even using the measurements, the feedback that you get from the mini hurdles. One of the challenging, really hard exercises that I'm not great at, but I'm gonna show you how we have this set up for a measurement. So we're gonna take the first exercise, the broad jump, so we can go through this with just that step-by-step process. I'm gonna try and make it over here. Boom. Notice, landed on my left leg in one jump. I'm pretty happy about that. Now I'm gonna go side here, boom, landed on 2, here, boom, boom. Wow, look at how bad I am over there. So that's gonna be a nice process through. I could, in theory, come back and do the exact same thing to train both sides. I'm gonna demonstrate a little bit faster going through this. And so we have a double leg bound to a single leg side jump, to a double leg bound to a single leg forward jump. So we could even make this more challenging where we have another lateral from the single leg position. I think if you train both ways and you do, 3 this way, 3 the other way, that's gonna help you increase your overall touches on the ground with that high speed. So I just went through this. My brain's processing it. I'm thinking through, how do I execute this at high speeds? Now I can go here, boom, boom. So now I went through with like minimal hiccups, but my contact time was pretty long. And if we remember back to the Drock videos, ground contact time at top speed should be shorter. So for acceleration, we're gonna have longer ground contact. We still don't want it to be crazy, crazy long, but if we're sprinting at high speeds or we're jumping, the quicker we can put out a massive amount of force, the more athletic, the more explosive we become. Okay, that's the impulse that we talk about. That's impulse expression. So we're going here, boom, 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 boom. Oh, I made it to the line. Think through it, and you don't even have to have these set up. You can just have like markers on a football field, markers at a playground, markers at your backyard, wherever. Work through this like 4 or 5 times each direction. That's gonna help you become a better athlete. It's gonna help you with that procession, okay, with the process. And then as a coach, it's just making sure where the cuts are slow, where the cuts are a little off, and then you can keep building out that program. A lot of people will talk trash on the box jump, and what they're saying might actually have some type of credence to it, because oftentimes you'll see people with these huge boxes and then they'll land with their hips below their knees. The reason I love the box jump for building fast twitch muscle is that it's an easy exercise, it's easy to get done, and you can do different variations. So I'm gonna give you the box jump, but of multiple different variations that you can implement today to improve that fast twitch muscle. First thing is just learning how to execute a nice counter movement into a jump with arm swings. A lot of younger athletes or inexperienced athletes, beginners, might struggle with the arm swing. Okay, so here, jump. Another thing that we'll see consistently with athletes that are a little bit more novice or a little bit younger is that they struggle with distance to the box. So they might be here jumping, or they might jump and when they land, they might come back too far and then they can't execute a quick repetitive jump. If we go box jump, come down, pause, box jump, come down, pause, box jump, double bounce, box jump, double bounce. Now, boom, boom. So you can use that quick progression to help the athlete learn how to execute that high speed movement with that elasticity. And when you execute that pause, that's where you'll start to see the athlete when they jump off, okay? They might jump off a little bit further here, and then they start to recognize like, wow, that distance might be a little far, okay? So here, pause. Now they can get back up there a little bit easier. So use the box jump as a good teaching tool. You got the counter movement, you got that fast reaction, distance off the box, arm swing. It's really easy and it takes that twitchiness to the next level. Now, the second exercise we're gonna show you is something I learned from Joey Burgles. We've used it in training, but some of the stuff that he talked about in our podcast is what I'm gonna be implementing here today. Now, when I'm thinking about being twitchy, I often like to think about 3 different levels of twitchiness, okay? So you're gonna have that first aspect of actually being twitchy with a very, very forced action, okay? So let's say I'm doing a back squat and I'm driving up fast. I'm really actively thinking I need to be fast on the way up on the concentric. Same with a bench press, something like that. Even if I'm doing an explosive push-up, 2 boxes, that's gonna be something that I'm thinking about actually doing rapidly. Same thing with a box jump. The next movement here, this is going to be a single leg pogo jump. And what we can do, we don't even have to have hurdles here. So you can do this out in your backyard. I like to do this oftentimes just to warm up before I even go out on a run. And my right leg is always the dead leg. So I might look at this and just go here, boom, boom. Notice I put it in that little stutter step, okay? Boom, boom. That was my first go around. Terrible, right? Slow. Think about how when we did those box jumps, we went through slow, then we added in the stutter, then we went in and we just executed that fast box jump. I literally just did that sort of by accident in the beginning, and it's the same thing I could do on my left leg. Here, now I go here. Okay, so the thing that I've learned here is that when we're doing pogos like this, single leg pogos, ground contact time, and if you spend time watching that Michael Drock video, ground contact time should be short. Force during the ground contact time should be high. And this is a great movement to train that. Then we want to think about raising that hip height, reacting quickly, getting that hip height high while having minimal time on the ground. So we're here, boom, 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 boom. And one thing you'll start to see with really high level athletes is that when they land, they sort of drive the other leg up. And that's really starting to trigger then that whip from the hip action in sprinting, okay? So you can use this exercise with any level athlete. If you have a younger kid or a novice athlete, let's say you have somebody who's 30, they just want to start working out. You can do something like this, like, hey, we don't even have to have the mini hurdles. We'll go here, just like this, okay? And then over time, let's say 3-4 months, they work into doing something like this if they have that strength. Now, the next series I'm gonna give you is another one. I'm gonna give you a couple progressions, and it's very challenging. And if you watch our lateral speed video, I talked about when you hit a crossover here, your adductor, okay, your groin here provides a large amount of stability in your hip. And when we're moving at high speeds, we have to be able to handle those high speeds throughout our hip girdle, throughout all of our joints. So we have to have really strong co-contraction. And that's where this one comes into play, is we're gonna actually do a side-to-side jump with our inside leg. So this is really hard. I'm not that good at this. And we're gonna jump and switch. Jump, switch. Notice I'm doing the stop. I just did that stutter. Here, boom, boom. I'm gonna give you a couple more progressions, and this is something that we consistently do inside of peak strength, okay? When you're executing a workout in peak strength, you might have a periodized system in place where you start with the exposure phase, you get to the comprehension phase, but as you work through that periodization, okay, the first program you get might be an easier version here. So we'll go like this into a pogo, okay? So broad to pogo. So that might be something that you see in peak strength in the first program, okay? So here, boom, boom. Now, the second program that you get might be, and this would be on a comprehension phase, you'll go here, boom, boom, up to that box. So you go broad to box. Now, if we go back over here, I'm gonna go here. Let's pretend that I'm on that rest timer, which is also inside peak strength. I'm gonna rest for about 2.5 minutes. Now let my body recover a little bit, let my brain recover. I need to execute this one a little bit faster. And we're trying to focus on getting a little bit higher. So we'll go here, boom, boom, ah, boom, 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 boom. That movement, okay, and you can see my errors in the beginning, is freaking hard. But if you're a wide receiver, if you're a quarterback, if you're a freaking basketball player, it's absolutely phenomenal for cutting, okay? It's really great for that fast twitch, but two, for being more agile. Now, let's say I'm going into closer to my peak. I'm 8 weeks out from my peak and I'm inside peak strength. I just progressed from broad to pogo, broad to box jump. Now the next progression would be here, broad to hurdle hop. Here, boom. Okay, and this is really freaking challenging too, because you have to gauge how far is my broad. I'm going horizontally, and then when I land, I need to transfer that energy to vertical. So you start to make these calculations. So if I work back and forth, now let's pretend we're on that third phase inside peak strength. I wanna execute this high speed. Boom, 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 okay? Now we're building into that more complex series. We're gonna go broad to hurdle hop, broad to a second hurdle hop. I think movements that are good are typically exercises that you'll be able to see if you can improve. And that might mean raising the hurdles. That might mean you have a cone here that enables you to do a broad jump of like 7 feet and then do a hurdle hop. And then the following week, you have a cone at 8 feet. So now you're making progress and you understand where that progress is coming from, instead of just doing exercises and not really having a gauge of where that progress is. So I'll go here. So you can use these two exercises. This is stuff that you'll see inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. Head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS Store. Download that today, start to get into that program. But we got a couple more exercises to show you. Okay, so the next two movements are literally GS standbys. The final exercise is probably what I believe to be the best movement for getting twitchy AF. Twitchy out of the blocks. Twitchy if you're trying to go take a jump step or anything like that. Now, I wanna show you the progression to lead into both of these series. Something that's simple, and if you think back to the Joey Burgles series that I'd show with the single leg pogos, you can just go and practice here, okay? And even if you can't jump, let's say, I talked about my right leg earlier. Let's just say I'm just going here. This is a really easy drill, good drill for me to get comfortable. Stand in place and do that, like 5 sets of 10 on each leg. You can see athletes make really good adaptations around 8 to 10 reps on a single leg pogo. So you saw me doing that easy here, right? Now all of a sudden we can add in boom, boom, boom. Then we get to the point where it's like, okay, now, boom, 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 boom. We can think about that. You can hold on. You don't have to hold on here. Boom, boom. But we just want to focus on quick time on the ground, short time on the ground, build up that rapid force. That's going to lead to the next part of this progression. Remember, I mentioned I really like using exercises where we have measurements, where we have benchmarks, where we can see that progress. The next thing we can practice is, okay, I got my box. Boom, land. Boom, land. And you notice I'm pausing now. Boom, 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 boom. I'm adding in that stutter. And then finally I can go here. Boom, boom, okay? Over time, work to make that as smooth as possible. This is part of the progression that's going to lead us to that final exercise. We take the single leg hops, single leg banded hops, single leg box jumps. You can even get to the point where you're going like a bound here, get real creative with it, all unilateral. Here's where I want to get into something cool. This is not the last exercise, it's the second last exercise. This is something I just did actually last week with Nick Singleton, the starting running back at Penn State, where we went over how to improve some of his cuts. He's known for being very fast. He's known for running hard. One thing that we did, let's go hurdle hops here, boom, land here, boom, boom, back to the hurdle hop. He'd land one leg, jump, and then back over. Now, when Nick was doing this, he actually was landing on one leg there. But the big factor here on this series is that if you notice, I have these little mini hurdles with the bar out. So one thing that I tend to see with athletes is that when they do a series like this, they might land, and I'll show you, I'll demonstrate here. They'll go here, boom, and then they sort of take like a half jump, and their knee or hip here is barely even over the line. It's barely even outside. And that means the intent or the intention to cut isn't there. So we wanna make sure, if you guys are doing this at a park or at a football field, wherever, you have lines, you have mini hurdles, whatever you need. You have a bag, you can put a bag there, and you jump as far out and far back in as you can, because that's where that intent's gonna be. So you're here, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we wanna see that travel outside. We wanna see the hips drive out, come back in, and if you plant, get out of that. It's a lot of that quad, glute, that's gonna be a fast twitch. Now, you know I love stair jumps. I think stair jumps are arguably one of the best teaching tools. You can do them real easy. It helps athletes learn the arm swing, helps athletes learn the projection because their chest goes forward. It's like running hills to me. You can't go wrong. So I'd be here, boom, boom. So it's really simple. Now, when I talked about the acceleration coming out of the blocks, hitting that big layup, whatever we're doing, we're coming off one leg. This next movement, I think, is arguably the easiest and best way to improve your acceleration. There's a couple big factors here. Is that when we're doing something like a single leg stair jump, okay, so I'm in position, I'm gonna have my projection here, okay, I wanna go, land, okay, and then I wanna think about cycling that knee back through. Remember when we did those single leg pogos, I talked about this opposing leg coming through, and that essentially is whipping from the hip when you're doing a plyometric. That's why this is gonna transfer really well to your top end speed as well. So we'll go here, boom. We need to make sure that our heel's not collapsing. Okay, so we need to be here. This ankle needs to be stiff. So that's where some of the isometric stuff that we've done in the past videos, where we'll do like a isometric hold in a split stance, that comes into play with an exercise like this. We wanna land, this needs to be rigid to provide that foundation. The hip comes through, we extend from the knee, we extend from the hip here, hamstring speed, glute helps with that extension. That's gonna lead to a faster execution. So we're here, boom, 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 boom. You could do this for like 6 sets on each leg. This is something that you can do too a lot because the steps are not as abusive on your body. That's why it transfers so well. So make sure you guys use all of these plyometrics. Use these progressions as effectively as possible. Oftentimes we'll use them in warm-ups and then we'll lead into those big sessions. We're thinking about jumping higher. This is gonna be an easy one. I really like to use a seated jump. Now, we're thinking about transferring force vertically, okay? Trying to get as high as possible. One thing that I like to do is even change the box height. So if I have an athlete who maybe when they back squat ass to grass, if they get stuck at a low position, I might actually lower the box to try and target that weak position. If I have somebody that's a little bit weaker, maybe in the mid-range, like this position right here, I might actually have them go off of an 18-inch box. But the first exercise is just gonna be a seated box jump here, okay? This is super simple. You could sit on a chair, you could sit on a park bench. It's very, very easy, and you can do like 5 sets of 3 here, okay? Now, one thing that you can do to add into this to make it a little bit more challenging is to do a tuck jump. So if I do a couple seated box jumps like I just did, nice and easy, I'm old, I'm trying to warm up before I do this tuck jump. What I'll do here is then add that tuck jump here, boom, back down, boom, back down, boom. Now, another aspect around jumping is learning how to transfer into some horizontal force. So we can do a jump here into a bound, or I can even just bound right off the box. So I could go here, land and bound, or I can be here and bound. So that's 3 different movements. Now we're gonna go into a couple other exercises to help you jump higher. So if we're looking at jumping higher, we've got to understand that plyometrics are gonna play a massive role in leading to that huge vertical jump. But we have to look at traditional speed strength exercises as well. Impulse exercises. So when we're trying to focus on developing athleticism to lead to greater jumps, I like to start with simple progressions. This video is all in on plyometrics. We also have to recognize that weightlifting derivatives and plyometrics both do a really, really good job based off research at increasing vertical jump and increasing speed. Then we can look at this as a simple progression. If we have athletes coming in the door here, we'll probably start them off with just learning how to squat properly, S-grass, learning how to front squat effectively. Then we can lead into those weightlifting derivatives. Then after those weightlifting derivatives, we'll start to do some reflexive work, okay? Now we're trying to get the athlete to react with load so it's a little bit slower. And then ultimately we build into those plyometrics, which are gonna be done at very, very high speeds. So that's the foundation of how we can build upon jumping higher. So we know that jumping and plyometric work can be as effective at increasing our vertical jump or jumping higher as if we're doing weightlifting derivative exercises. So that brings us to our next exercise, and this is going to be a soleus jump, or more commonly known as a pogo hop, okay? So we wanna get in place here. Now, when I'm doing this, notice I wanna think about grounding from the middle of my foot forward. I don't wanna be flat-footed, but I also don't wanna be here. I wanna be sort of in this position, and I want my ankle to be rigid, okay? I want my ankle rigid, and I want my knee joint to have slight flexion here as though it's a coil. So I'm here, boom, boom, boom. Look at my arm swings, okay? So this is another thing, is that oftentimes with athletes who struggle to jump, they just might not be that athletic, okay? And you have to use drills and use jumps like this to teach them the arm swing. If we use pogo hops, okay, here, boom, 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 boom. We could try to slowly increase the height, and we can try as hard as possible to decrease the time on the ground. That leads to impulse development. Now, one of my all-time favorite movements that I've really been playing around with quite a bit has been if I do a bound into a pogo hop. So I'd be here, boom, 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 okay? This is really freaking hard, especially for younger athletes to figure this out. You have to think about projecting forward, getting that chest out, cycling through, decelerating with the foot in front of you, landing, and then doing a rapid hop. So we'd be here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so that's what we wanna look for as that progression. This is a really, really challenging movement because you're changing direction, but it's freaking awesome for sports like basketball, volleyball, any sport really where you have to try to change direction. You might be running, planting, jumping, wherever you're doing. Another version of this is even more advanced. So advanced that I've only ever had a couple athletes, one being the number 9 discus thrower in the history of the world, Jaime Perez, who probably has the clean world record currently in the women's discus. And Jaime, as you'll find out, is one of the strongest women in the entire world and quite possibly the most twitchy female on the planet. Now, after 16 to 20 hours in an airplane, we've done exercises like this to try and wake up that nervous system so she can go compete and win some money. Now, the next progression off of that could be an easy jump, okay, so almost mimicking that pogo hop, go into 2 hurdle hops, which I'll demonstrate, and then finish with 2 to 3 pogo jumps. Okay, so we'll go here, boom, 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 boom. And this is what we've used recently with Jaime to really get her prepared to throw really far. For athletes out there, this would be, you do pogo jumps as a warm-up, or you do pogo hops as a part of your athlete day. Do that for 4 to 6 weeks. Take time to build that up. Then you can get into the bound to pogo jumps. That's much more complex. That's gonna take you about 3 to 6 weeks to adapt to. Then you can get into these hurdle hops, into that pogo jump, but it takes time. These are 3 freaking awesome exercises to get those bunnies. Now the next movement is going to be an interesting one, okay? So we're just gonna do this, boom, okay? We're just looking for that depth drop. Now, I've seen crazy videos of people doing like 15-foot depth drops. Maybe they were a little lower than 15 feet, like 10 feet. But I think it's a good place to start at like 12 inches. Maybe you work to 24. I don't really think you need to go much higher than that. Okay, so if we go here and just drop, we want to be able to put on the brakes with that eccentric force right there, okay? I don't want to see athletes here, if they're doing this, just sort of plop down. That's where we see that they need a little bit more stiffness in their joints. Typically, if we're trying to build speed strength, we look at lifting weights, moving heavy weights fast, and also doing movements like this. And then we can progress them really well, okay? So we're doing a depth drop. The next thing that we can do is do a depth drop to a bound. Here, boom, okay? Nice and easy. And you can play games with athletes. All right, let's have a competitive edge here. Let's see if we can jump 2 in a row and beat the partner that you're training with. Okay, here, boom, okay? That's one way that we're gonna use this in that progression. The next progression would be, we have somebody like myself who's slow off of the right leg. I wanna drop and do a single leg drop into a bounce. So I'm here, boom, I wake this up, and then I go single leg. Then we can go into the left leg, drop, boom. And we can see in real time, where is someone lagging? Is it their right leg? Is it their left leg? Again, when we're building out our strength training program, we like to focus on this. After we do this, let's say we do that depth drop to bounds, let's say we do depth drop to single leg bounds, the next progression, and if we did this over a couple different weeks, one of the things we have to think about is that when we're training high level athletes, or when we're just training you guys who want to become high level athletes, it takes time. We can just start with that depth drop. We do that for 4 to 6 weeks. You gotta train 2 to 3 days a week for 4 to 6 weeks. Then we go to depth drop to bound. Okay, we try and improve that. And then the last thing that we can do after we've been training for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, for a long period of time, because we wanna attain these big time goals, is we can do a depth drop to a hurdle hop. Here, boom, okay? You can hit, and we wanna think about hit, go, boom. We don't want to plop and collapse. We want to be rigid, absorb that, and then get into that next jump. So the next exercise that you need to use to try to jump higher is going to be a sweet one that I really love to use. This is one I use with Jan Johnson to help him get prepared to make the Tennessee Titans. And one of the things that we did was we wanted to figure out, how can we have an overloaded position that has a jump to really get him firing, to then jump forward so you have this horizontal movement, and then lead into a vertical movement. We're gonna go here, 1, 2, drop, bound, come up. That's what we have inside of Peak Strength. You guys can download Peak Strength by heading to our peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, to get on that gain train to become a freak athlete. I'm so out of breath right now. Okay, so again, here, boom, boom, drop, boom, boom. So you can work through this really consistently. Now, one thing we've got to bring up is that recent research has also showed us that basketball players will jump higher if they have greater relative strength, okay? That segues us into some different aspects around training. You look at someone like Josh Sarachan. He's a guy who has a 40+ inch vertical weighing 270 pounds. He can power clean over 400 pounds. So that leads to a high relative strength. So we need to use movements like weightlifting derivatives, like a snatch, a clean, some type of jerk, okay, to really develop the ability to fire and move heavy weight fast. And if you learn how to use those weightlifting derivatives, and you're doing jumps, and you're doing the right strength training, you eventually might get to the point where you can jump like Isaiah Rivera. We're gonna give you 3 exercises right off the bat that are actually going to get you faster and more explosive. You can do box jumps, you can do hurdle hops, you can do stair jumps. All 3 movements can be scaled accordingly. We can take box jumps and make sure we're focusing on landing a little bit taller here, okay? But we can change the height of that box, and that can help us scale according to the athlete. Take hurdle hops. We can change the verticality of the actual hurdle. We can even change the distance. Let's say we've got a younger kid, we can even be using something like mini hurdles to execute those hurdle hops. Let's take stair jumps, for example. You can even differentiate. Instead of jumping 4 or 5 at a time, maybe you just jump 3 at a time. But you can alter that based off of your athlete, based off the individual person who's actually doing the plyometric. So if you're doing those exercises, let's think about the stair jumps. You could do that for 6 sets up to the top of the steps. Looking at the box jumps, that could be 6 sets of 3, 5 sets of 4, something along those lines. Hurdle hops, same thing, 5 sets of 4. That's a great way to improve this. And I'm feeling freaking froggy today. So we're gonna count that group of exercises as 1 exercise. So that means 9 more movements are gonna be coming your way. You can go try these today. Now, so why do plyometrics help you get faster? How do they help you actually get stronger? What do they do to actually make you more explosive? And if we think about it, lifting weights will help you get faster, be more explosive, get stronger. But there's a certain aspect where that tool can be slightly limited. And if we look at plyometrics, these movements are happening in extraordinarily short periods of time with extremely high levels of forces. We should probably be devoting an entire day to that quick production of a large amount of force. And that's gonna bring us to impulse. So inside of Peak Strength, we program an athlete day specifically to develop these plyometric skills. And when we think about how quickly you have to produce a large amount of force to do a hurdle hop or to do a box jump or anything along those lines, that requires a large amount of coordination. So if we can recruit at extremely high speeds, now that's going to lead to a little bit more athleticism. So if we can focus on building strength, building mass, and then also recruiting at very, very high speeds, that's gonna make us a little bit twitchier, a little bit more explosive. We're gonna give you 9 more movements, and some of these I guarantee you have never seen, but they're all gonna be things that you can use to get more explosive and to apply more force. Okay, so what about exercises that don't need equipment? Think about just using your body weight to jump. The body weight exercise that you can do anywhere. You don't need equipment. You could go outside in your house, on the sidewalk, in the middle of the street, as long as no cars are coming, and do this right now. The first one is going to be a tuck jump. I'd recommend doing 5 sets of 4. Focus on your trunk. I'm gonna demonstrate here shortly, and quick reaction. So one way would be your first set. Let's say your first set of 4 looks like this. Here, boom, boom, boom. Second set, okay, you rest a little bit. Let's say you rest about 90 to 120 seconds. Now we can get in here and we're going here. Okay, so you can execute those tuck jumps pretty rapidly. Now, the next thing that we could do would be skips for distance. And we want to think about cycling and being as explosive as possible. So if I back up here, oh, I'm out of breath. I'm going here, oh, 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 oh. So you hit those skips for distance and you try to have 3 reps on the right side, 3 reps on the left side. And one thing that you could even do is hit a set of tuck jumps, hit a set of skips for distance, rest a little bit, and then you could try this third exercise. And this is gonna be a bound. Now, our turf is a little wet right now. So a bound would look like this. If I'm starting here, this is 5 yards here. Let's say when I'm doing this, I have a target in my mind. I wanna get 5 yards. First set, I could go here, boom, boom, okay? So about 2 jumps to go that 5 yards. Second, third set, as I start to wake it up a little bit more, I wanna try and land on my second jump. I wanna try and land past that 5 yard mark. So I'm here, boom, okay? 5 sets of 3. These are all exercises that are really easy to do based off of only having body weight. Use them fairly regularly, make sure that you're warming up accordingly, and get through those tuck jumps. You're gonna feel that in the abs the next day. Skips for distance is gonna help with speed and that quick turnover. Those are great movements that you can use to improve that overall explosiveness. When you jump, do you jump off of 1 foot or 2 feet? And this is actually a legitimate question because some people are very good at jumping off of 1 leg. Some people are very good at jumping off of 2 legs. It's really important that we train both bilateral plyometrics and unilateral plyometrics, and that's gonna take us into the next 2 movements. So this first exercise is named after Nick Gwiazdowski, who's a 2-time world bronze medalist that we trained here at Garage Strength. This is known as a Gwiz jump. One of the things around this jump was that Nick and I were talking, this is way back, like 2018, 2019, we're talking through what we can do to help him change his level to get a little bit quicker on his shot. And that led to the development of this exercise. It's really freaking hard. And one thing I recommend is that you try to get a little bit of a feeling, a little bit of a warm up for it. And you're gonna start in a skater squat position. So this back foot isn't actually touching the ground. Okay, so we're here, we're gonna be in this position. Now, I wanna try to get onto this box without using this back foot. Okay, so a lot of people when they first do this, they'll start to roll forward here, they'll get a little bit of a counter movement, but then they put that back foot down. So try to avoid that. That's why the first couple, you'll almost feel like your legs are dead a little bit. After you start to wake that up, you'll start to feel a little bit more twitchy, and then you're gonna see this could really freaking help you, especially in a deeper range of motion. And if you're a wrestler, if you're a football player, if you're a swimmer coming off the blocks, it's really gonna help you be more explosive from that specific angle. So we're here, boom, boom. Now, my right leg sucks. I'm a little nervous for this one. This is the one that always feels a little dead in my glute. I should have done this one first. So I'm gonna get here. Oh! So do the whiz jumps. I should have done my right leg first. Typically I would recommend weak leg first, build up over time, and then we're gonna get into that next jump that's unilateral. Now we hit the whiz jumps. The next single leg movement is gonna be really freaking good for that trunk control. We like to use that garage strength single leg pad and roller. And so what we're gonna do is get into position here. I'm gonna get overhead. So my T-spine is a little tight, but this is where this helps. So you can get in position, put that back leg up, go here, boop, boop, boop. Oh yeah, over here. And I really, really like to use these on athlete day to develop the glutes, to develop that upper back, to develop the trunk, which in turn leads to greater dynamic trunk control, and ultimately you're twitchier in that unilateral position. So you can use these exercises inside of your own training. I wanna give you more movements that are absolutely crazy. I wanna give you over 700 exercises. I want to give you the opportunity to become more athletic. The next group of exercises are those movements that you likely have never seen before. So if we're looking at jump series, we gotta think through the lens of mostly open skilled sports. So if I'm developing someone to go to the NFL, like the first jump series that I created that was for Jan Johnson, who ended up playing for the Tennessee Titans, we were looking at his movement patterns that would be happening in a unilateral position, in a bilateral position, and then trying to replicate that. And that's the coolest part about the jump series. Any type of series that you can create will have unilateral jumps, bilateral jumps, rotational jumps, angular jumps. Just, you can get crazy creative with what you're trying to do. And this first series is what we call the Jan Jump series. So we're gonna go through this with unilateral jumps, into bilateral jumps, into a proper landing on the box. So use the Jan Jump series. You can go through this 6 sets. Make sure you're focusing on the weak leg when you're grounding. React as quickly as possible. Get through those hurdles fast. Some people, when they first do the jump series, when the Jan Jump series, is they sort of fall off the box because they're not able to control that horizontal momentum. That's one aspect around that trunk control, around being able to transfer that horizontal energy into vertical energy. That's what makes it so applicable to the world of open skilled sports. Now, the next series is known as the RB1 jump series, okay? And now, just because it says RB1 doesn't mean it's the greatest jump series for running backs, but it's extraordinarily good. Now, this is gonna look like doing a side jump into a forward jump. If you get very, very twitchy, very coordinated, very strong and athletic, you're gonna be able to do this by landing on one leg and doing a little bit of like a jump cut to get back into that forward hurdle hop. That's very, very advanced. That's what you do when you're someone like Nick Singleton and you've taken over 7 to 8 years to develop in that freak level capacity. Now, if you're a little bit slower like myself, we might do it like this. Okay, so we're gonna start here. We're gonna go side, forward, side, forward. I was a little slow on that one. And you wanna go through this 4 sets total. So we can go through jumping to the side to my right side. Then we can come back and jump through going from my left side. And then we go back and forth for 4 sets on each side. So it ends up being 8 total sets. Use this to improve that cutting ability. And we talked about this in the Jan Jump series, transferring that horizontal energy into vertical. But now we're going lateral and transferring that into forward energy. Okay, the next series, this is gonna be fantastic for any field sport, anybody who plays on a court like basketball. It's unbelievably good for cutting. It's also extremely challenging, so you have to be careful as you're building up to this. And this series is called the Impulse Burst series. So impulse is applying a certain amount of force in a designated period of time. So this is a large amount of force in a unilateral position, which then leads to that bilateral jump. So we got the 2 mini hurdles on the left. We're gonna get into that bilateral jump, and we're starting off with like a more aggressive hide and jump. So we'd be here, okay? Boom, 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 boom. I hit that 1 mini hurdle. Now let's do that again with a little bit quicker reaction. So I'm not talking. Okay, so I'm gonna go here. I've also got an excuse. I'm worried the turf's a little wet. So I'm here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, now you could start this by just going here. We wanna go both sides. So if we can hit both sides, let's say you do 6 total sets, left side, right side, that's 1 set. Go through this 6 times. It's gonna take you about 20 minutes to get it done. you've got to have proper recovery and you've got to focus on being as twitchy as possible. Now, if you aren't comfortable coming off that box and doing that unilateral hide and jump, what you can do is just start here and go boom, 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 okay? So you can alter that slightly, scale that beginning part down, and maybe you do 3 sets without the box. Bring in the box, and that's gonna help you improve that ability to cut rapidly and then get up onto that box. Think about a linebacker scraping, coming back, jumping to block a pass, anything along those lines. The impulse burst series is absolutely phenomenal to train those key aspects around football and any other sport. When we're talking about jumping, we have to go over proper mechanics. It's unbelievable how few people actually know how to properly jump, meaning they don't know how to do a counter movement. They don't know how to use their arms. They might use their arms like this when they're going to do a jump, as though swinging their arms backwards will help them propel forward. They might even not know how to dip their chest. They might keep their chest really vertical here as they're trying to project themselves forward. So we've got to cover some of those key mechanics. So those key factors is that we have to absorb energy. So if I'm doing a counter movement, and let's pretend I'm going to improve my vertical jump, part of me absorbing that energy and being elastic. Again, later on, you're gonna hear me talk about this as well. Elasticity is key. A lot of people talk about being rigid in the ankle, being rigid in the hip. Elasticity, okay? I think that's a better term that we should all adopt, just like impulse, is that we have to absorb energy, keep it elastic, keep our muscles elastic, and apply as much force in a short period of time to propel ourselves vertically, horizontally, whatever that might be. So here, we're gonna dip, okay? And when we dip here, we wanna see that absorption, that force absorption. And then as we dip, we're gonna come through with our arms, and if we're doing a vertical jump, here, our chest is gonna be a little bit more upright. We're gonna do a nice quarter squat with our knees, with our hips here, and just come here. Nice jump, okay? Dip nice and tight, propel ourselves vertically. Notice my chest is upright on that finish. Now, if I'm going for distance, I wanna take that vertical force, that vertical energy here, I'm gonna dip on that counter movement, and then as I dip, I'm going to keep my chest forward, and my shin angle will change to help me propel forward. So I'm changing my center of mass. If I change my center of mass forward, that means I'm gonna project myself forward. So I'm here, boom, okay? So those are some very key, simple mechanics that you have to understand. Absorb that energy properly, be elastic, use your chest and your arms to help you propel in the direction that you need to go so that you can optimize overall performance. Okay, so the first key exercise here is going to be simple. It's going to be a strength movement, okay? A lot of people, when we're trying to increase our vertical jump, they just want to dive straight into big plyometrics, crazy jumps. They want to do all these crazy looking things that they see on Instagram, but they can't even back squat 300 pounds. And no, I'm not going to be the guy telling you that for you to do plyometrics, you have to back squat double body weight. People used to tell me that back in 2005, 2010 when I was in college. That is not accurate. But we do need to be stronger. We have to have strong quads. We have to have a strong back. We have to have a strong and explosive posterior chain that's gonna help us with that tendon strength. And that's ultimately going to lead to better positions when we plant. It's gonna lead to better positions when we go to take off if we're doing a vertical jump. So that first key exercise is going to be simple. It's gonna be a side, slow step up. I even like to think about if I would have a goblet here, like a little dumbbell. I wanna go nice and slow. Okay, and I wanna reach out slightly, and I like to keep this toe up. I wanna dorsiflex my down ankle, so I can hold a dumbbell here, come down, okay, and then drive back up. And this is gonna really help blow up the quad strength, and it's gonna help us have that healthy knee joint, okay? It's also gonna light up your quads and your glutes. If we think about jumping, it's hip extension. So if we're training our quads and our glutes together, that's gonna help improve our overall hip extension. So here, come down, drive back up quickly, okay? And I wanna push as little as possible from that down leg, about 20%. Here, slow, boom, okay? One more, boom. Now, before we get into the reps and sets, have you ever heard of our brand new app, Peak Strength? Click on the link down below. You can get 7 free days of training for over 35 different sports. Now, into the reps and sets. What I like doing here, 4, 5, 6 sets of 4 to 6 reps. Remember, here, slow, controlled, 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 here, boom, up quickly, okay? And if you notice, by going out to the side, I'm even forcing myself to have a little bit of that dynamic trunk control, and that's gonna help improve my overall functionality, leading to being able to jump off of one leg and two legs, which is a key component behind optimal sports performance. Okay, so one of the best ways that you can build tendon strength, and remember, tendon strength is extremely important when we're talking about jumping. It's also important if you're going through everyday life. You want to make sure that your knees are healthy. These two exercises are things that you can do anywhere. You don't even need a gym. Just like you don't need a gym inside of our brand new app, Peak Strength. You can click on the no gym available. So one of the best exercises that we're gonna show you, and I learned this directly from Kevin Simons, two-time CrossFit Games athlete, okay, is actually walking up steps backwards. So we were in Monterrey, Mexico, and we actually spent every single morning going up and down the steps backwards. And what ended up happening is your quads get a big pump. My quads got really pumped. We could do this over and over again. Now, if you don't have access to steps, what I recommend doing is finding a hill, okay? Find a comfortable hill. You can get on there that's 60 meters, 80 meters. Run full speed backwards at a safe pace so where you know you're not gonna fall over. You're gonna get about 30 meters into that trip and your quads are going to be lit up. This is going to lead to tremendous quad strength. And then, I almost fell over. And then what ends up happening is that helps you when you go to make that plant, when you're going to do a jump, and it also helps you burn more calories so that you're a little leaner and you can stay fit for a long period of time. Now, another really, really great exercise. It's pretty fun to do this as well. I think it's one of the best warm-ups if you go easy. As you start to get a little more aggressive, you want to put this later on in your workout, okay? So this is going to be a double leg jump to a single leg landing. Now, listen to this story. This is something I got from Al Vermeil, strength coach for the Chicago Bulls back when they won 6 world titles. And he talked about triple flexion. Flexion in the ankle, the knee, and the hip, and how important that is to deceleration. Okay, so one of the things that as you age, you start to struggle with deceleration. You tend to slip, you tend to fall over, you tend to get tripped up, and you can't brace quick enough. So that's why we like to do this even with our older population and with our athletes. If we're talking about athletes, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go nice and easy, okay? Everybody can do this just to start out nice and easy. You can do double leg bound into a single leg stop, okay? Double leg bound here, single leg stop. You can do that a couple times. And then as you start to get warmed up, you start to get primed. If you're an athlete, you really want to focus on that quick, aggressive landing so that you have that elasticity, okay? You have that quick ability to absorb energy. So we're here, boom, okay? Pause, I want a nice pause there. I'm gonna do that again on my left leg. Boom, okay? And what ends up happening is you can start to see with specific athletes which side they favor, okay? So then you wanna do that weak side first. For me, my right leg tends to be my weak side. So when I wanna decelerate, I really wanna focus on that with my right leg. Boom. For this exercise today, you can do 5 sets of 3 jumps on each leg. Now, one of the best ways to lead to having a better vertical jump is by using some sense of accommodating resistance. I like to do that typically as well with a little bit of pre-fatigue. Okay, so a lot of athletes might be tired when they're inside of a game, when they're inside of a wrestling match, when they're about to do something explosive, okay? There's also athletes like swimmers or sprinters that might be coming out of the blocks and they don't really have to be fatigued, but they have to have tension set. And that's where I really, really like this movement. Now, if you're here for general fitness, this is just a phenomenal movement to help you be more athletic, to help you learn how to absorb that energy so that you can age properly and keep that elasticity. And this movement is gonna be involving our Power Elastic HAF band. And what I like to do is actually set this up inside of a rig. Now, if you don't have a rig like this, you can use dumbbells. You can use cinder blocks, okay, or concrete blocks. You can use anything to help you set this up. Just get creative. It doesn't have to be fancy. Now, I like to get into that split position here, okay? And I wanna be here holding split position, holding about a little bit of a quarter squat, okay? I even like to go slightly flexed on my front foot. My heel is just elevated very, very slightly. I also wanna see that back leg, okay, with that back leg flex, the heel up. So I'm gonna hold this for about 10 seconds, and I'm gonna get into a split jump here. Boom, 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 okay? And then we can switch. Hold this for about 10 seconds, and you can even get creative where you go hold, jump, 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 hold, okay? But you wanna feel this position where you got that tension here, and then you're here, boom, 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 okay? Another unique thing that you could do is even hold that position here, right? Boom, 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 and then squeeze through that position in that split. Now, this movement requires a lot of coordination. It can lead to a lot of fatigue. Make sure you're taking that ample rest so that you recover really well and that you can keep that twitchiness firing. This movement is absolutely phenomenal. One, for general fitness, as you can see, I'm out of breath, but also for athletes that play in split position sports. You know, if you're a wrestler, if you're a shot putter, anything along those lines, football player, field hockey players, you're gonna benefit tremendously from this movement. What a great morning for us to get that sunlight on our eyeballs and really start to wake up and give you this next key exercise, which is an awesome movement to help you with that hip extension. It's also gonna help you with that rapid force absorption. Okay, so if we're in athletics, we need to extend our hips all the time. We wanna do vertical jumps. We wanna jump up and block a ball. We wanna jump up and catch a pass. We need to catch a fly ball. We are going to be extending our hips even if we're coming out of the blocks as a sprinter or if we're taking a counter step as a running back. We will need to hit that hip extension. That's where this movement comes into play. We also have to have good mobility. Okay, so here we're doing a knee jump with that hip extension, really firing those glutes. We're gonna absorb rapidly and then lead to a tuck jump for height. Okay, so this is boom, boom, really, really quickly. For those individuals that are a little bit older and you're just trying to be fit, walk through this nice and easy. Take your time. There's a lot of complicated movements here. There's a lot of complicated moving pieces. So this is gonna be a sweet demonstration. We're gonna start, and again, I wanna have my hips come back, okay? Hips are gonna come back, so the first movement is gonna be a knee jump. I'm here, here, okay? And then we're gonna go into that big jump. So now, I'm gonna go here, boom, okay? Hit, go, hit, go. I'll show you two more. Here, boom, okay, one more. Another great exercise that you can use for general fitness if you're trying to be healthy, but also it's absolutely phenomenal for athletes, okay? When we're talking about trying to jump higher, getting a bigger vertical jump, trying to be more explosive, it all comes down to how well we can reuse energy. How elastic are you? I'm trying to get away from that word of being rigid. I think the term rigid can just be a little bit too tight where you can't really do anything, but if we can think about the elasticity of a deer or of a kangaroo and just watching them run, that's what we want to think about. That's what we want to be, and that's what we want to be as we age and as a world-class athlete. So if we're going to do this movement, it's going to be a depth drop. Okay, so just get a curb, a bench press, no higher than about 14 inches. This is about 10 to 12 inches right here. This is plenty high enough. The whole goal here is that we want to take vertical energy, transfer it into horizontal movement, okay? Vertical energy, forward. So we're going to do a depth drop into a bound. Now, there's a couple key factors that we want to look at. How does someone ground, okay? What are they doing with their chest? How are they propelling themselves with their chest? How is their chest guiding them with the shin angle and with that movement of their mass? And then what are they doing with that arm cycling? One of the key factors behind a lot of people is they just don't know how to jump. They might arm cycle like this. They might actually arm cycle like that and think that that's gonna help them jump further. So try to really focus on proper arm cycling. So what we wanna see is a depth drop here, and as we're dropping, we wanna drop that chest slightly, swing those arms back, okay? So now I'm gonna demonstrate from a full actual depth drop into a bound. Here, boom, okay? So I like doing 5 or 6 doubles. So you can do, that's 1 rep, this would be another rep. Again, remember, drop, and as we're dropping, we wanna cycle at the same time. We're gonna keep that chest about 45 degrees, not too steep though, it doesn't need to be crazy. One of the big things I learned from Jaime Perez, Olympic bronze medalist who trains here, world champion discus thrower, she's probably the most explosive female I've ever encountered in my entire life. She keeps a nice, simple chest angle and is extremely explosive. Even weighing over 200 pounds, she's still able to move over 3 meters on that double leg bound because of the way she handles those forces when she grounds. So again, one more here. boom, and try and stick that landing. That's gonna be phenomenal. It's fun. It's something you can do with a partner where you go head to head, so it helps with that competitive edge. You can also put a little mini hurdle here. Use that as a guide. You can measure this on a regular basis so you can see how well you're making progress. It's something that's fun to do. It has practical application to life and also has phenomenal application to the athletic realm. Everyone has a different training situation. A lot of people don't have access to gyms, but one of the best things behind vertical jump training, behind jump-based training, behind plyometrics is that in most cases, you don't need a gym. You can go out on the hill, like we mentioned. You can go into work and go backwards up the steps. You can do bounds in your backyard. You can go to the park and hit bounds and do jumps. Anything along those lines. It's fairly simple because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.
Is there any clear splits, a leg split, an upper body split, or hitting muscle groups X number of times per week that you recommend or that you've seen within the research?
I actually favor full body workouts for most people.
Because they're just learning how to move with the intent to move things faster. Is there anything to that, or is that still just voodoo from me wanting to get people to do weightlifting movements more?